as we see warmth, bonhomie, camaraderie between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping. He arrived in Chennai this afternoon to a very colorful welcome and then has now arrived at Mamallapuram. Smiles being exchanged, and I'm sure a positive message will go not only to Asia but to the whole world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while addressing the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York earlier this year, had started by saying that it's a very special occasion because this year, 2019, the entire world is celebrating the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And his message of truth and non-violence is very relevant for us even today, for peace, development and progress in the world. Dressed in the traditional Chinese attire, Honorable Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi and the President of China Xi Jinping. So that's the traditional Chennai attire. And now Prime Minister describing the importance of the Arjuna's penance. This is the unfinished rock-cut cave temple. This is towards the north of Krishna Mandapa. This cave temple would have been the largest of all cave temples of the Pallavas. On stylistic grounds, it may be placed later among the Mamallapuram style cave temples in the period of Parmeshwara Varman, who ruled from 672 to 700 CE. This cave temple has a unique plan in having a rock-cut shrine at the back of the facade hall with an unfinished passage for circumambulation. The facade itself is relieved with a series of what is known as Hara elements. The pillars are unique in having Vyala over the Palaka and below the Kapota, as is seen in many examples during those times. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So taking off from the Wuhan spirit, the Chennai spirit will continue to chart the future course of India-China partnership. If we talk about the United Nations Sustainable Developmental Goals, Then SDG 17 focuses on the global partnerships and a positive partnership between two of the Asian giants, India and China, will certainly help in accomplishing sustainable developmental goals. The panoramic view that we see on the Arjuna's pennants depicts the life in the forest, which is aptly sculptured in two large boulders. The cleft between the two boulders is utilized to show the flow of the river Ganga. All semi-gods, goddesses, celestial beings rush towards the central point to witness the great event. But even as we see this panoramic view of the Arjuna's pennants, there is another story. As the legend has it, some scholars identified the panel of the Arjuna's pennants with the story of Bhagiratha bringing the Ganges to the earth. This is known as the descent of Ganges. According to them, the representation here is that of Bhagiratha's penance and Shiva granting him the desired boon by agreeing to release Ganga from his locks, the scene representing the descent of the river from the jungle-covered hills in the joyful presence of the gods. महान महाकाव्य महाभारत की जो प्रसिद्ध कथा थी किरात अर्जुन, उस पर आधारित है द अर्जुन्स पेनेंस, यानी अर्जुन की तपस्या। अर्जुन शिव की आराधना करते हैं। माना जाता है कि किरात यानी हंटर के रूप में भगवान शिव अर्जुन की परीक्षा लेते हैं। कठोर तप के पश्चात शिव द्वारा अर्जुन को वरदान स्वरूप पशुपत अस्त्र, जो कि एक दिव्य अस्त्र है, प्रदान करने की जो कथा है उसे यहां बखूबी दर्शाया गया है। और इस विशाल चट्टान शिल्प के बैकड्रॉप पर वर्तमान में इतिहास बनते हुए यह पल्लव मूर्तिकला का एक उत्कृष्ट उदाहरण है। इस घटना के साक्षी तीनों लोकों को जीवंत तरीके से अंकित किया गया है। भगवान विष्णु का लघु मंदिर भी देखा जा सकता है। और कुछ विद्वानों का तो मानना है कि भगीरथ की कहानी जब वो गंगा नदी को धरती पर लाए थे, उसे द अर्जुना's पेनेंस में उकेरा गया है। और अर्जुन की तपस्या के बाद अब दोनों नेता बातचीत करते हुए आगे बढ़ते हुए तमिलनाडु की पारंपरिक परिधानों में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, Prime Minister Modi always emphasizes on people to people contact, and one of the joyful ways of ensuring strengthening of partnership is to showcase the rich cultural diversity the country has. Incredible India. From tourist perspective, it's important that there are cultural exchanges. This is the Ganesh Rath. It's a monolithic temple dedicated to Shiva. It is also known as Atyant Kama Pallaveshwaram. The title Atyant Kama is to be identified with Parameshwara Varman I, who was a Pallava king from 672 to 700 CE. He continued the tradition of carving of monolithic temple initiated by Narasimha Varman I at Mamallapuram. The Honorable President of People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, showing keen interest to understand the different aspects of history. गणेश रथ का ये जो पूरा अखंड मंदिर है, ये शिव को समर्पित है. It has a narrow Mukh Mandapa, which has two lion pillars in the center and two lion pilasters, and flanked by two Dwarapalas at either end. Prime Minister Modi had emphasized on the importance of people-to-people contact through an acronym STRENGTH. S, spirituality, T, tradition, trade and technology, R, relationship, E, entertainment, that includes movies, art. N for nature conservation. G, games. T, tourism. And H for health and healing. In the backdrop of the two leaders now, Krishna's butterball. A photo opportunity for both the leaders. A photograph, they say, conveys more than 1,000 words. Two powerful leaders. Leaders of two powerful economies of Asia. The Krishna's butterball is very intriguing. One wonders how this boulder is delicately balanced by nature. Why does this boulder does not fall? How does it defy gravity? Quite a mystery, but that is why it is such an attraction for tourists across the globe. If you want to see Krishna's butterball, you'll have to come to Tamil Nadu, India, at a place called Mamullapuram, which is the venue for the second informal summit between India and China. स्थानीय लोग इसे कृष्ण का माखन लड्डू कहते हैं। ये लगभग 6 मीटर ऊंचाई, 5 मीटर चौड़ाई और वजन में लगभग 250 टन का है। कितनी सुंदरता से बिल्कुल संतुलित खड़ा है। कृष्णा's बटरबॉल एक प्राकृतिक स्मारक है। So the entire group of monuments that includes the Arjuna's penance, the Panch Raths and the Show Temple, the three monuments that the Chinese president will get to see today before both the leaders attend the cultural program. The entire group of monuments is considered a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Indian and Chinese cultures were based on development along river banks. Whether it was the Ganga or the Yangtze River, it provides habitat for humanity, for flora and fauna. And as both India and China aspire to become more and more developed economies, it is also very essential to lay emphasis on the soft power. So in this informal meeting, there is no written agenda, no MOUs to be signed, just a freewheeling discussion and exchange of thoughts. And after visiting the premises of the Arjuna's penance, the two leaders now move on towards the Panch Rathas. The five Rathas of Mamallapuram exhibit the different types of Vimanas, like a magnificent periodic table of Dravidian architecture. These are carved from top to bottom. The five monuments, popularly known as Panch Pandav Rathams, are temples to Shiva, Vishnu, Skanda, Durga and Ganesha. There are three freestanding sculptures of animals, a lion, an elephant and a bull, symbolizing the vehicles or vahans of gods. Every rock and every boulder here stands tall as a testimony to the architecture of the Pallava kings.
The Chinese President Mr. Xi Jinping and the Indian Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, they represent two ancient cultures that have had ties of trade, friendship and perhaps most importantly of spirituality for several centuries. This site is situated almost a kilometer away from Arjuna's penance. While Arjuna's penance is an exquisite example of bas-relief, these chariots are unique monoliths. It is with great pride that India showcases her ancient treasures to the world. And we see the arrival of the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, here at the Panch Ratha site. Taking pride in one's culture is what makes us Indians special. And today the Honorable Prime Minister is dressed in the traditional dress of Tamil Nadu. He receives President Xi, a beautiful setting sun adding magical light to the site. The Panch Rathas are also known as the Panch Pandava Rathas, and they are an excellent example of monolithic architecture. The Pallava kings who built these rathas were known to experiment with new and different forms of art and architecture. They pioneered rock-cut architecture that can be seen all around the Mahabalipuram complex. It looks like a hermit's abode with a hut-like thatched roof with a curved effect. The shrine is dedicated to Goddess Durga. Next to it stands a life-size monolithic elephant. This is a fine example of Pallava imagination and propensity for experimentation. And this is the Bhim Ratha, or the chariot. This is the largest of the 5 structures, with a roof that is shaped like a country wagon. It's interesting how these rathas are named after Pandavas, epic heroes from the epic the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata, which dates back to circa 5th century BC, mentions China. So we know that our ties with China go back thousands of years. The Yudhishthir or Dharmaraj Ratha is the tallest structure. It depicts the maturing of temple architecture and is the most refined of the 5 structures. It became the basis of the temples to come later during the reign of the Cholas and others thereafter. The base of this shrine is supported by carved pillars with lion bases and corner supports. There are many lifelike sculptures on the corners of this shrine that depict various manifestations of Lord Shiva. The 2 leaders pause for a moment to admire these great works of art. One of the greatest of Chinese poets is Li Bai, who lived in the 8th century. His words resonate on this occasion. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. In only such a meditative state could the artists have created such works of beauty, and the beauty in turn takes one into a meditative state. The relations between India and China go back at least 2000 years. The Tamil and Chinese interaction is at least 13 centuries old. So it is quite easy to imagine travelers coming here to admire these very sites, to wonder at these structures in the ancient times, just as we admire them today. Perhaps Hyun Tsang, who was here during the Pallava period, did walk here with his friends and admire the sheer beauty of these structures. These beautiful structures have been left unfinished. No one really knows why. Li Bao has said, "No one understands now those who could hear a song this deeply vanished long ago." The first records of contact between China and India were written during the 2nd century BC. Buddhism was transmitted from India to China in the 1st century AD. Trade relations via the Silk Road acted as economic contact between the two regions. There is a 1,000-year-old history between Chuanzhou and Tamil Nadu. Tamil traders lived there during the Song and Yuan dynasties and built temples there. The most famous being the Chedian temple, which has a beautiful deity which is called by a different name in China. But archaeologists believe that the style of that deity is exactly similar to the kind of work that was being done at the same time in India. In the 1930s, dozens of stones showing perfectly rendered images of the god Narasimha, the man-lion avatar of Vishnu, were unearthed in Chuanzhou. Chanakya, in circa 350 BC, who was the Prime Minister of the Mauryan Empire, refers to Chinese silk as Chinam Sukha, or the Chinese silk dress, and Chinapatta for the Chinese silk bundle in his Arthashastra. In the records of the grand historian Zhang Qian, in 113 BC, and Sima Qian in 145 BC make references to Shendu, which may have been referring to the Indus Valley, originally known as Sindhu in Sanskrit. Of the many interesting similarities and commonalities between India and China is sugar, which was first developed in China. And when it came to India, we called it chini, meaning something which is referred to as Chinese. And even today, when we talk about sweetness in life or in relationships, we talk about chini. The Cholas maintained a good relationship with the Chinese. An entire treasure trove of ancient Chinese coins have been found in the Chola homeland. Many sources describe the great sage Bodhidharma, the founder of the Zen school of Buddhism in China, as a prince of the Pallava dynasty. During the 8th century, the astronomical tables of science by the Indian astronomer and mathematician Aryabhat were translated into the Chinese astronomical and mathematical book of the Treatise of Astrology of the Qian era. And of all the beautiful Chinese things that have become part of the Indian tradition are the Chinese fishing nets in Kerala. They were probably introduced in the 14th century and today are a major tourist attraction. People come from all across the world to look at them. These structures here, the rathas, date back to the 7th century and are attributed to the reign of King Mahendravarman and his son Narasimhavarman in the 7th century of the Pallava kingdom. These temple structures were never consecrated, due to which some historians even speculate that this could be a training ground of sorts to create templates for future endeavor for creating larger templates. This is the second informal meeting between President Xi and the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. The greenery all around and these boulders, which have been so beautifully chiseled into these shrines, remind me of the words of Li Po. You ask me why I make my home in the mountain forest, and I smile and am silent, and even my soul remains quiet. It lives in the other world, which no one owns. You ask me why I dwell amidst these jade green hills. I smile. No words can tell the stillness in my heart. I live in the other world, one that lies beyond the human. Art and culture, science and economics have always gone hand in hand between India and China. Five of these rathas are present here, of which 4 are linear, whereas the 5th, which is the Nakul Sehdev Ratha, stands apart. The elephant and the lion standing close together, almost lifelike. A delegation to China was sent as long back as 1,000 years ago by the great Chola Emperor Rajaraja. A Shiva temple in China and the use of Chinese umbrellas centuries ago shed light on ancient links between Tamil Nadu and the Dragon Land. In fact, one finds similarity in the lions that we see here in many of the temples of Tamil Nadu to the dragons of China. These are visuals of the Dharmaraj Ratha. This informal meeting reminds one of September 2014 when the two leaders met in Ahmedabad on the banks of the Sabarmati River. They met last year in Wuhan, an ancient city which at the same time is modern in China, and of course, and now this meeting in Mamalapuram. These informal meetings where the two leaders meet as friends work towards solidifying the India-China relationship. The Pancha Pandava Rathas are simply spectacular. They are monoliths, that is, they are made out of a single living rock like many of the other structures in this area. The Pallavas were pioneers in this kind of architecture. President Xi and the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi circumambulating these structures. So we see the Dharmaraj Ratha, which has beautiful depictions of Shiva in various forms. The structures with their beautiful sculptures and personifications of Lord Shiva, almost lifelike, as they depict Shiva in various manifestations such as Gangadhar, Nataraj, and there in the corner is Ardhanarishwar, the combined form of Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati. It is the ultimate divine manifestation of the masculine and the feminine in the same deity. And we see Lord Shiva's mount Nandi behind the beautifully carved Arjun Ratha and those boulders that were left incomplete, and no one knows why. Perhaps in the unfinished lies great potentiality. Just like old songs and old music can create new melodies for the future. The Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and President Xi moving towards the beautifully decorated gate as he sees off President Xi from this spot. A firm handshake for a firm friendship. As the carcade leaves this spot, they move towards the famous shore temple of Mahabalipuram, which is also known as Jalashayan, or one that reclines by the water. It is also believed that the shore temple was a landmark for the navigation of ships and a haven for seafarers.
The most iconic image of Mamallapuram are the twin shore temples, magnificently located by the sea. The taller east-facing temple, Kshatriya Simha Pallaveshwara Graham, has a 5-story Vimanam. The west-facing smaller Rajasimha Pallaveshwara Graham has a 3-story Vimanam. With a variety of fascinating sculptures, most faded by passage of time, but most of it has fallen, and only the lower portions of the walls remain. A magnificent series of seated Nandis decorate the outer edges of this wall. One legend says that gods themselves were jealous of the beauty of these temples. Mamallapuram is not only a grand living museum of architecture and sculpture, but also a perennial puzzle delighting tourist, historian and Rasika alike.
महाबलीपुरम का ऐतिहासिक शोर मंदिर है, जो तमिलनाडु का पहला संरचनात्मक मंदिर है। बंगाल की खाड़ी में तमिलनाडु के तट पर ऐतिहासिक मामल्लापुरम यानी महाबलीपुरम आज इतिहास को फिर से रचते हुए देख रहा है। और ये तमिलनाडु का पहला संरचनात्मक मंदिर शोर मंदिर।